everybody, and welcome back to this week's episode of the Ripple Effect Podcast. As usual, we are so glad that you are here, whether you're joining us watching this online or you're just listening to this on the go. We're so glad that you are here with us. In the studio to my right, I've got Mr. Brian Sevitz with me, and on my left, I have Miss Dawn Beaverson with us, and we are so glad that we are here with you today. Before we get into the podcast where we talk about things you need to know coming up, we recap the week and highlight an area at the church or in the ministry that we think you need to know about. Before we do all of that, we have to give you the sponsor of the week. And this week's sponsor is a special one. I wrote it in to work today. And special is this little motorbike thing. This comes from our preschool, and they have, can they see me? I don't know if you can see. They have underneath, I don't know if I should tell them where it all is. Most Probably of you know. We have stored in a special place some fun bikes and toys for the kids. And Miss Sandy Fincher does a great job leading the preschool, and they do a great job with the kids. And we don't talk about that enough. And at some point, we'll probably need to highlight them. But they're coming near to the end of their semester here in a little bit. They got another month to go.
And they're doing enrollment now. They just started it.
Enrollment's open for next year? Well, there you go. So I know these toys get played with a lot, and more than that, the preschool is used in our community, and I know so many people appreciate the work that Sandy does. And she's not alone. Sandy's got a lot of help back there as well. So there you go. The sponsor of the week is, what is this, Play School? Is that what this is? Did you ever ride the big wheel bikes?
Oh, yeah.
Did you ride those?
One day you rode a little bike to work.
I did.
It wasn't that one.
I did.
But it was like a little girl's bike.
Facebook Live video while you
Facebook
rode.
Live did it. Our car, one of the car was broken or something, and I wanted to ride a bike. Oh no, we left the van at the church.
Yeah, and yours was broken.
And I, like a dum-dum, didn't just call you and be like, hey, can I get a ride? I rode a little bike.
Did the police stop you and ask if you stole that bike?
No, but the chain did break several times. You know those loose ones if you're going too much on them. Anyway, there you go. Let's recap Sunday. Sunday, how was your Sunday? Was Sunday good for you?
Yep, I thought it went well. It seems it's only been a couple of days, but it seems like a long time ago now.
A lot happens between Sunday and Tuesday.
But I really liked working with the music team we had.
Yeah.
It was a really good morning. And
it was a good week. It was a good week. Dawn, how was your Sunday?
It was good. I was gone the week before, so it's nice to be back. And was busy just trying out some new things. We had a lot of new people Sundays, so
we're going to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
Some things we're going to try in the lobby and some ideas that we have. This past week we were in part 4 of our Simply Jesus series, and we were talking about Jesus and why did he die? Why was he hated and why was he killed? And if you missed any of that, you can go to tlcc.church and you can watch the service there, or on YouTube, or on Facebook. And I think those are the only places. Are they?
Yeah.
Those are the main places that we go to. I'm trying to think about what happened on Sunday. One of my kids was not feeling well.
Yeah.
So they were in my office. That's become like the quarantine area. And I'm trying to think of what else happened. Here's what happened. I took a nap on Sunday. And I was so disoriented. Have you ever taken a nap in the day and then you wake up and you're so disoriented? And I could not hardly recover. We had small group that night, and I was so groggy, and I just kind of was sitting there and I was even more tired. Apparently that means you took too long of a nap.
I didn't get any nap. Sunday we had the postal waits here, and they invited a few people if we wanted to stay for lunch, so we ordered lunch and had it at church. Then, I fixed our car. We had a little thing, a sensor that needed replaced, so I did that myself to save some money. And I said I was going to nap, and I don't think I ever actually did. No. But rested some in the afternoon.
That's good.
So do you sleep at night if you nap? I don't sleep Sunday night.
Oh, yeah. I'm even more tired.
Okay.
Yeah. And I don't know if that's because I hadn't been feeling well, so I don't know if I was just sick or whatever. But anyway, Sunday was a good day. It was a good morning. And it was a good chance. I felt like Sunday was a good day of talking with people. I got to talk with a lot of different people. So anyway, if you missed a service, I would encourage you to go watch the service and catch up on everything that was talked about in preparation for Easter especially. All right, let's give you the TLCC top 3 of the week. Brian, what's the TLCC top 3 of the week?
Well, we're kind of fudging this week because there's more than 3. But the first one is everything to do with Easter. So we've already been talking about it, but just in case you're out of it and, haven't been listening or watching anything we've been putting out, we'll say for this week, we have Good Friday service at 7. Good Friday service is family style. Yep. So we are going to have nursery, but any kids older than nursery will be in there with us. On Easter Sunday, it is 8 o'clock, first service, 9:15 breakfast. Mary was saying, if you come just for breakfast, remember that the food is, people eat around in classrooms, and so they can get their food and go spread out around the building, right?
Yep.
Right.
So these classrooms around the church building will be set up, and then you get your food, and they'll be near the kitchen, and then you'll go find a seat. Great chance to meet people, talk with people, maybe individuals that you haven't met before. We'll use it as a time of really fellowshipping and encouraging one another.
And the main thing to remember, we have plenty of space. So like last year, people were thinking there wasn't anywhere to sit down. All you have to do is go on down to the junior high school rooms or one of those, and there'll be plenty of spaces to sit and eat. So that's kind of the Easter stuff. We have our second of the top 3 is the men's breakfast. And we did kind of throw together these plans. So someone this morning was like, so when was that? I haven't heard about that. And we're like, well, it's because we just decided last week.
Yeah.
But it's hard to fit things in the calendar in the spring. So we just made an executive decision. And I did feel bad because even our chairman of the deacons is like, I don't think I can be there that day. But we're going to be here. We're going to have breakfast and we're going to have a work day on April 13th with whoever can show up. And so the men's breakfast, we're going to plan it for 8 o'clock that morning. We're going to have, you were talking about earlier, bacon, maybe biscuits and gravy. Eggs, yeah. So it's not going to be just like our donuts we pick up. Even though people enjoy those, it's going to be like a more well-rounded breakfast and a little Bible study. And that'll be over by 9:30 or so. And then even if you didn't come to the breakfast, ladies are invited to come join us if they want. I assume families can come. We'll find something for you to do. April 13th at 10 a.m. then is what we're calling all church work day. And we're going to have, we already know of 6 projects, but we'll have plenty of things to do.
Yeah, so if you have a couple hours that Saturday and you'd like to participate in helping us get a couple projects done at the church building, most of them you don't need a lot of skill, you just need to have a willing heart and willing hands to do a couple projects. Some are cleaning, some are some fixing things, projects around the building that we could use help with. And we're going to go 10 to noon, and so it's not going to be a huge all-day thing, but if we have many hands, that'll make light work. So men, you are invited to join us for men's breakfast, and we'll have a Bible study and share together. And then at 10 o'clock, everybody's welcome to come and join in for a couple hours of serve day. A service day. Yeah.
All right. That's the top 3.
That's the top 3.
Yep.
So it is a couple of things. You got the Good Friday, Easter, all that, men's breakfast, and then a time where we can do a service project at the church building.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's get into the Spotlight of the Week. We have been thinking a lot about when you walk into a building, what's the first impression that you get? And so I have a question for both of you. And the question is, think of a time when you've walked into a place and it was a really bad first impression. What made it bad? And then think of a time where you walked in and it was like, wow, this is amazing, and what made it amazing. And since you haven't had time to think about it, and I've had a little time to think about it, one time we walked into someone's home, and we walked into their house, and they invited us to a dinner, and nobody said hi to us. Everybody was just kind of eyeballing us. Well, nobody came to the door at first. That was the problem. So then nobody said hi to us. The house was a little bit dingy. I don't know if that's the best way to say it. And you could tell that there was no plan whatsoever it was just this thrown together thing. And we felt so awkward and so out of place. And then we're just can we leave? Do we have to stay here? It did not feel welcome at all. And then on the flip side, I remember we went to somebody's house and like they met us at the drive because they knew that their driveway was kind of hard to see. So they met us at the drive. They introduced us to everybody that was there. And then they had the biggest thing was they had a specific thing set aside just for our children. So they knew like this was just for our kids. And that was the first night that I met the whole team at Timberlake, because that was the night that we came and we went to Lorraine's house, and Lorraine had made a special meal just for my kids.
Wow.
Someone met us right outside. And then we went around and they introduced us to everybody. And that was a night where we just felt so like welcomed and appreciated and kind of like, oh, wow, we were impressed at how just amazing everybody was. And were you there that night?
No.
I thought maybe was it Jessica that was there?
I think yeah, she would have been there.
Someone was helping our kids. So Jessica, I think Jessica.
Oh, I don't remember. Yeah.
And that little downstairs, that little like bar area, she had made a separate meal just for my children.
Wow.
And then like had stuff designated just for them.
Okay.
Anyway, made me feel super welcomed.
Yeah, that's nice.
All right, so I've talked long enough. Have you thought of a bad example of like this is strange?
A bad example, and this wasn't a terrible example, but a bad example that came to mind from a church. I did my sabbatical, was that 2 years ago?
Yeah, 2 years ago.
And we were out at this church. And there were a lot of good things about this church in South Dakota.
Mm-hmm.
I had stayed at a place where they did hiking trips and stuff, and then I just went to church with them. And, we get to the church, and of course I already knew this couple, and I ended up sitting with them and stuff. So that was fine. But the people at the church, when I walked in, just almost looked at me suspiciously. And you walk in this church, and it's a very small hallway. They don't have a big lobby or anything. You're just basically walking through a hallway, and then you turn and go in the sanctuary. And it's like they don't say hi.
You are a suspicious looking
They're
person.
just like standing to the side, watching you walk by, like they're wondering who you are. And I was like, this is like the perfect example of what not to do to people.
Yeah.
And like on the flip side of that, the best examples that I can think of are just when people are expecting you and waiting on you. And the couple that I'll point out with hospitality are Dale and Sue. I think back to when we first came here, very soon after we came to Timberlake, we got in a small group of married couples with Dale and Sue Samp.
He's an elder at the church here, for those of you who don't know.
And I mean, they are a couple that, they're waiting for you at the door. If they know you're coming. Mm-hmm. If they're having small group or something, they're waiting there. The door opens as you're walking up to it. They take your coat and put it somewhere if they need to. If you've made food, they take that. And when I think about it from the church perspective, you want people to feel like you expected them to be there.
Yeah.
You're hospitable in a way that you were waiting for them.
The anticipation.
Yeah.
Don?
I was thinking I've avoided a lot of bad situations because my personality, I just don't do things that I think are going to turn out badly.
You avoid them.
Small, like little restaurants. There's a lot of little restaurants I would like to try, but I'm afraid to because I think I'm going to be nobody knows who that is, and I'm going to be the stranger when I walk in, and they're going to all look at me oddly, and I don't do that, which is not good, but.
Kind of have to stretch your horizons a little bit,
I do
Don.
need to. I just need to be a little braver on that. Yeah.
All right, on this next trip that we take in the fall, we're only going to small, hole-in-the-wall places.
Well, if I'm not by myself, that's okay.
Oh, okay, all right, because you're not alone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I just want to do it by myself.
We have had some experiences like that at restaurants where you pull up somewhere and you walk in and you're like, okay, this is all locals here, and they're all
They have regulars every day.
Do you remember
one of
when
them.
we went to that little Cuban place in Florida? It was our last day there in Florida. It was just you and me left, and we went and ate at this Cuban restaurant.
I don't remember.
And
I remember getting ice cream at the boardwalk.
Yeah, no, but you and I, we stayed a day extra. Everybody had left.
Yeah.
And then we did the paddle boat thing out there. And then we went to this little restaurant. It was like an authentic Cuban restaurant. And I was like, this sounds great to try. And it was like that. We sat in the middle of the restaurant and everybody's just looking at us because we are these two gringos, these two white boys in there.
Yep.
And we don't belong at all.
I don't do that necessarily by myself. So.
Do you have an example then of like a place where you felt like really
Well, I was just thinking in college, I was on several teams where we traveled and stayed in people's houses like for a week at camp. And I was made welcome lots of places. I mean, there's one lady, she's moved now. I don't even know where she lives, but she was a single lady and she had a little girl and she just opened up her home to us, showed us where everything was, let us eat meals with them, watch TV with her in the evening. And I still remember that was one of my favorite weeks of my life. It was just, I felt so welcome in her house. It was in Burlington, Iowa. I'm tempted to go back.
Burlington, Iowa?
No, it wasn't Burlington, but it was, shoot. I thought I'd come right off with it. It was in Iowa, but I've driven through there again, and I thought I would see if I can find her house. I couldn't find it.
Knock on the door, like, can I watch TV with you?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's funny.
And I found her on Facebook one time, and I sent her a message. She didn't remember it at all.
Really?
So it meant nothing to her. But
it meant the world to you, though.
It did.
I think that's a good segue because sometimes hospitality, it doesn't mean a whole lot to us if we're showing it, but it can mean the world to someone who feels uneasy or who doesn't feel like they quite fit in yet. And the reason we're talking about this and what we want to highlight is some initiatives that we want to do just to try to help make our church more hospitable to people that might be newer. And we've been specifically talking about the lobby. When someone walks in the doors, what do they see? What do they feel? Who notices them? And who's going out of their way that it might not be a big deal to them, but it might be a huge deal to the person that's newer. And so we've been talking about things like, we have greeters, we have people handing out bulletins, but individuals who can show them around the building. That might not be a big deal to us, but for someone who's newer, maybe nervous about church or coming back to church, just even having someone walk them around and say, here's everything. Let me show you the bathrooms. Let me show you the kids area. It can go a long way. And the heart behind it is that heart of hospitality. And we're commanded to be hospitable to people around us. Jesus tells us to show hospitality even to strangers and to treat them like their family. And so we've been talking about some changes that we can make and maybe even just small ways that we can be more attentive to how we interact with people in the lobby. So I'll ask you guys this question. Give just 2 or 3 things that you think everybody can do to show hospitality to new people, specifically in that space of the lobby, the coffee area, maybe just coming into the church. What's something that we all can do to make sure that we are noticing and being hospitable to new people? Mm-hmm. And specifically also we're talking about this around Easter because it tends to be a time where new people are, I'll try out church, or I haven't gone in a long time, I should go around Easter time.
Yeah.
So what's a couple things? Anything come to mind?
One, just say hello, speak to them, introduce yourself.
All right, well, now, we got to unpack that a minute. So why wouldn't you've said this before, so I have an answer in mind, of why you would hesitate to go up to someone new and introduce yourself.
Because you are not sure they're new.
That's what you say all the time.
I know.
Are they new? Uh-huh. So one phrase that I've used a lot is, have I met you before?
Yeah. Because,
if I have, then I can apologize. I'm sorry, I don't remember. But if I haven't, that guarantees
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't met you before. What's your name? So maybe a good rule of thumb is, if you're not sure, what does it really hurt to say, hey, I'm Dawn, have I met you before? And then if you do, then you feel a little bit foolish and you move on.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that we've been talking about, and this is one of the reasons we want to, mention these things with everybody, either in whatever ways we can. And the podcast is one of those ways. Most of you people listening or watching right now are people who know us that are coming here somewhat regularly. If you're watching and you're brand new, then that's fine. You're listening in on some of the behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes, that's right.
But never assume hospitality is someone else's job. That's the first thing. And that's having to be drilled into us too.
Right.
So we're not like there's no blame going on here. It's really just awareness of we have been seeing some time. It's so weird because we will sometimes in the same week have a new family that was like, this is the warmest, most friendly church.
Yeah.
And then you'll get a comment from somebody like, nobody even noticed me.
Yeah.
Well, and sometimes the way that you get that comment is like, well, someone noticed you, or you wouldn't have had any way to express that comment. You know, you had to have some conversation for us to know that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, people who are already connected with somebody in our church already have sort of this baseline of, oh, I already have a friend there, I have a coworker who goes there, someone recognized me because I worked somewhere in town that they recognize me from. But then there are people who see our church as more cold or uninviting. And we look at the reasons why, and a lot of times they've been missed at some of these layers of greeting or whatever. But one of the things that came to mind is, for one thing, just always be looking for somebody new. Yeah. Like every week, if you're in the lobby, anticipate meeting somebody new, because we have new people almost every Sunday now. Yeah. Which is awesome. The second thing is be oriented toward the door or the middle of the room. And this is one thing, I mentioned it to a couple people Sunday when we're standing around, like, we need to turn. We stayed right where we were for the conversation we were having, but we turned our bodies toward the door so that if somebody walks in, it's not a bunch of people's backs toward them. I mean, and it's such a simple thing, but it makes such a big difference if you're walking in to see faces toward you and somebody that can at least smile and kind of wave.
Instead of butts.
Yeah.
Nobody wants that. It might be your best feature. I don't know, but I'm just saying. On Sunday, I had, we've kind of been talking about this idea of hospitality. And I caught myself, I was in a conversation and halfway through I realized, my back is to the door. It doesn't have to be, but I'm just talking with this person. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that. It's just a mindset of being like thoughtful of it.
And I put the responsibility on everybody, because that's not just for the greeters. It's not just for the staff.
Oh yeah.
If you're in the lobby, you know, you can have a purpose there besides just talking to your friends, which it is a mingling place. I mean, we want people to enjoy talking with people, fellowshipping in the lobby. But at the same time, you can see it as a responsibility to make sure that people don't get missed if they're, and that's just like I said, you just stand there, you can be talking to a friend, but just say, okay, when a new person that I don't know comes in, I'm just going to at least say hi. I'm just going to shake their hand, whatever it is.
Well, not only just in the lobby, but I've noticed, I mean, it's hard for me sometimes when you have a greeting time in the service or before church, if you're sitting by somebody you don't know, even if they're not new, this is the perfect opportunity to
look at them and be like, so what are you in for?
Exactly, yeah.
Well, and I've noticed, again, so Brian kind of said it already. This is not a critique of the church. I think we, by and large, we all want to do a good job of being kind and hospitable, and many of you do that really, really well. But think about with that mindset of if I'm new, what would I want? You know, I wouldn't want someone coming up and overwhelming me, but I certainly want to be noticed. I certainly want someone to say, hey, good morning, I'm glad you're here.
I was just sitting and thinking, that's the first time I met Justin Margaret, and he had come for a long time, but I sat by him one Sunday morning. I have no idea who this is. So, you know, we got to talking, and I'm like, I've seen your name. I know you've been here a long time, and I'm sorry I hadn't met you till today, but
I think that's the beauty and kind of the struggle of being in a church that's a little bit bigger and it's growing is you can't just assume you know everybody,
right?
But you also can't assume people you don't know haven't been here for a while. But it's that heart of hospitality to say, I'm glad to be here with you, and if I don't know you, I just want to say hello, and I'm glad that you're here. And particularly for Easter coming up, for those of you who've been here for a while, there's just a couple things we can do that have been mentioned already to create an environment of saying, I want to go over the top to make sure that someone who might be a guest or more likely coming back to church for the first time in a while, that their experience is a positive one, because we don't want to hinder anyone from missing the gospel of Jesus. And most of the time, you know, people don't walk away from a church because of the teaching or because of something they heard on stage. It's usually the people that they're interacting with. And you can't always control that. Right. But if we can be mindful to be as hospitable as possible.
your first time visitor who doesn't already have a connection, like, okay, I'm coming with my friend. We were watching something or at some session, I don't remember where, but they said within a few minutes, I'm going to say 3 to 5 minutes, I don't remember exactly, most of those people have decided whether they'll ever come back, and it'll take like moving a mountain to change that. They might change it if they were like wowed by the sermon or something, but
not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen.
But a lot of people, like, if they have a great first impression, then they'll maintain that, even in spite of a few weird things that might happen in the service or whatever. But if they have an awful first impression, you have to do tons more to get them to come back.
Yeah, and we've seen that before. So I guess overall, the spotlight is there's some things we're trying that we want to continue to try to do to be a place that's hospitable and encouraging and welcoming to people who might be newer. But it takes everybody, and it's not, like Brian said, it's not just one person's responsibility. And I love the statistic that talks about anywhere between 5 to 7 connections. That's what it takes for someone to feel like they fully belong, is that they've made 5 to 7 unique connections. And so even if one person or another person meets them, just by introducing yourself or greeting someone, you could be one of those connecting points that helps them feel more part of the church. And in doing so, a greater opportunity for them to be involved, encourage, and grow in their relationship with Jesus. So there you go. That's the Spotlight of the Week. Be thinking about that as we celebrate Easter together, that it's not just an opportunity for you to worship God and to celebrate what Jesus has done. It's also an opportunity for you to be mindful to say, okay, God, help me notice somebody today, and how can I encourage them? Because that's part of, as we gather together, encourage one another as the day draws near of Jesus' return. So there you go, Spotlight of the Week. Let me give you a little blessing that doesn't come from me. Someone this week sent me an email, and she said, I appreciated your sermon. It was the greatest sermon I've ever heard. I'm just kidding. She didn't say that. But she said it gave me some things. It really changed her mindset. She was about to leave the church now. She said it gave me some extra things to think about. And you mentioned Lazarus.
Yep.
I always want to say Lazarus. It's not Lazarus. And she said, I was reading in a little later in John chapter 12. And she pointed this out to me. So this is not from me. This is Tamara. She was the one that pointed it out to me. In John chapter 12, so Jesus raises him from the dead in John chapter 11. In John chapter 12, it says this. Jesus, this is verse 1, therefore 6 days before the Passover, came to Bethany where Lazarus was, whom Jesus has raised from the dead. So they made him a supper there, and Martha was serving, but Lazarus was one of those reclining at the table with Jesus. And she said, can you imagine someone looking at Lazarus and be like, so how was your week last week? Well, let me tell you about my week. And right after is a beautiful picture where Jesus is anointed with washing of the feet. Mary takes the perfume and nard and washes Jesus' feet. But I've been thinking about this phrase because I'm going to use it on Sunday, that the worst thing is not the last thing. And the death of Lazarus was like the worst thing they could imagine, but it wasn't the last thing. There was still this meal that they got to share together. And just imagine sitting at the table with Lazarus, who was dead and he came back to life. That the worst thing that they could imagine wasn't the last thing, and there was still hope because of Jesus. And we are promised to one day sit with Jesus at a feast and get to share in a meal together. And so there's just a lot of hope that maybe whatever you're going through are things that you've endured, just because you might feel like, man, this is the worst thing. It doesn't have to be the last thing. That God uses, because of what Jesus has done, resurrection power to redeem all sorts of stuff in our life. So be encouraged, and I don't know, think about Lazarus and eating a meal with him. So there you go. That's the blessing of the week. We hope that you have a wonderful week, and we hope that we will get to see you either on Good Friday at 7 p.m. Or Easter Sunday morning, 8 a.m. or breakfast at 9:15 or 10:45. God bless you all. We hope you have a wonderful week, and I'm gonna take my vehicle and stroll on out of here. And we'll see you guys.